Hey everyone, welcome back to Toasty TCG. This past weekend, I went to my local's Edge of Eternity's pre-release, where I got 4-0 playing just a Jund aggro deck. I was originally just going to play Rakdos aggro, because I had a lot of just like the black removal, and just little red low to the ground guys. When my very last pack, I pulled Tannuk, Memorial, Ensign, and this card convinced me to also include my green options, which had cards to get me more lands to make him useful, as well as some artifact enchantment removal, which helped against round 3 when I played against an Azorius like control deck. If you're watching this video, you probably already know what Tanuk does. He's Landfall, he burns, he draws you cards, and he's very low to the ground, so he's super efficient, has a nice stat line for 3 mana. And it's very surprising because when I was like first building him, I noticed that on EDH Rec he's actually one of the most popular commanders, and he's honestly kind of unassuming, so it was surprising to see how popular he is. So if you like this kind of video and content, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get right into it. To start off, we got to get all the boring stuff out of the way. That, of course, being our disruption removal package. So to start off, we've got Nature's Claim, kind of just an obvious one. Got Constant Mist. This is just a little disruption piece for playing against like combat decks. So that way you have sacrifice a land, which doesn't matter in this deck, and it's just fogs. So Yo is Justice. Just make sure if you need to pause the video to read this. I think this card's super underplayed, and it's pretty cool actually. It's kind of like Chaos Warp almost. A Braid, Return to Nature, Lignify, Kenra's Transformation, new piece of removal, Ruinous Rampage. It either will exile all artifacts, mana value 3 or less, or 3 to each opponent. We're typically going for that second mode, because this deck doesn't really play a whole lot of artifacts. We got a Spiteful Banditry, SWAT, Chaos Warp, Beast Within, Archdruid's Charm. I just count this as removal because 2 of the modes are effectively removal. Other mode is either going to get you into a land or get you to a creature. Clothis, just for some Grave Hate, Force of Vigor, Chain Reaction, Decimate, Volcanic Offering, and good old Blast Act. So that is all of our removal, both targeted removal and mass removal. So we'll get into our card draw. Normally I like to play 12 pieces of card draw, but with Tanuk being Tanuk and just drawing you a lot of cards on his own, I figured I can trim that down a little bit, so we are only playing 8. First, Keen Sense. You can also double up on this effect by playing Snake Umbra. This just guarantees, so anytime you play a land, Tanuk is dealing the damage, and Keen Sense doesn't care if it's combat or non-combat damage, it just cares that it's damage. So if you play a land, Tanuk will deal 1 damage to each opponent. You may draw a card for each opponent being dealt that damage. Rydia, this from the Final Fantasy set. It's a Landfall Looter. Realms Uncharted, Tireless Tracker, Valakut Exploration, Nissa, Vital Force. This one's really good because if they don't remove it the first rotation it comes down, you can just ult it the next turn. It comes with 5 loyalty, you +1 it, goes up to 6, and then you get that -6, all your lands can draw you cards. Bloodbraid Challenger. I always like to include 1 piece of like, I can play this card out of my grave. This just guarantees that like in a slow, grindy like situation, I have like, if we're all on limited resources, like no board, like no one's seen like card draw or anything, and I just have this guy chilling in my grave, it guarantees like, oh, I can at least have a repeatable threat that like, even if if you're in a grind game, just like having that 4/3 cascading you into more cards is just like a nice repeatable option. So I always like to include some form of like, I can play this guy out of my grave, and I really wanted to give Bloodbraid Challenger a try when I made this deck, so here he is. And then finally, Cultivator Colossus. Moving on to our ramp. Normally I like to include 12 pieces of ramp, whether it's artifacts, mana dorks, ramp spells, but in this deck I decided to keep my ramp that's gonna get me to lands and ramp that's not gonna get me to lands in two separate piles. So the ones that aren't gonna get me to lands are Soul Ring, a bunch of mana dorks, birds, delighted halflings, Lotus Cobra, Tireless Provisioner, and Nissa, Resurgent Animist. And then the ones that are going to get me to lands: Elvish Reclaimer, Crop Rotation, Exploration. Burgeoning is really good, because if your opponent plays a land on their turn, you get to play a land and ping the table for 1. And then if you're playing against another deck that plays a lot of lands on their turn, you get to likely draw a card too. 3 Visit, Farseek, Rampant Growth. You can also be playing Nature's Lore and Into the North if you want to have just 5 2-mana sorceries that are going to get you into your basics, forests, mountains, things like that. I kind of just ran out of space, to be totally honest, otherwise I would play them. Wake in the Woods. This card also doubles as a win con, so late game, once you burn the table and they're down to like almost single digits, you just tap everything out, make a bunch of land creatures, and that's game. Zeldinch, it's kind of just like a baby Azusa. You get to play additional land, but you have to bounce a land at your end step. This just guarantees that as long as it's in play and you have 2 lands in hand, you keep playing them, Tanuk will keep drawing you a card. The actual Azusa. And then next up we have Harrow and Roiling Regrowth. These kind of function as the same thing. Harrow just requires you sack the land as an extra cost though. What's really cool about these is that they're instants that will get you to 2 lands. So you cast these on your opponent's turn, Tanuk will deal 2 damage and you draw a card outside your own turn off his own ability. So that's really, these are cool cards here. Scape Shift, this pretty much doubles as another win con with Wake in the Woods, where you just sack all your lands, get a new set of lands and kill the table. Sowing Mycospawn. This card is it's similar, I think of it as like a crop rotation for 4 mana on legs, where its cast trigger is going to get you into any land that you want. If you kick it, you can exile someone else's land. Attempt with Discovery. This is normally just going to get you any land from your library for 4 mana, so it's another crop rotation. Most people don't take the Tempt because you're playing land deck and they don't want you to get extra lands. So you're usually just getting the 1 land, but 4 mana to just tutor in any land from your library is 100% worth it. And then a Gladius. This is pretty much Golos for Gruul, and just Landfall ability makes your creatures bigger, so you can also act as a threat. Next up, these are cards that will just get us that just give us value for playing a land deck, such as Sabo Tender, I believe it's pronounced. Just like a baby version of our commander, where Landfall just pings the table for 1. Life from the Loan. We're going to be going through a lot of fetch lands and lands that have activated abilities or abilities where they're going to put themselves in the grave. So Life from the Loam is really good in this deck. Courser Crewfix is going to gain you a bunch of life. Play lands on top of your library. Ruminop, Crucible of Worlds, and Ancient Green Warden. So that way we can play lands from our grave, and Ancient Green Warden will let us double up on our landfall triggers. Roaming Throne, this is a proxy with Howl's Moving Castles art. I love this one. You're calling either Pilot or Kavu on it, doesn't really matter. Or you can call it like Elemental. So like if you want like more elementals, I don't think like any of our elementals have triggered abilities. I could be wrong though. So you're probably just calling Kavu or Pilot, so that way when you play a land, Tanuk will deal 2, and you get to draw right away off playing a single land. Shaya, turning everything into land, so everything comes in. Your non-token creatures at least. Your non-token creatures come in as forests, so your non-token creatures will deal damage. Well, Tanuk will deal damage for seeing them. And then Rampaging Baloths. I didn't want to play Scoot Swarm or Avenger Zendikar. I feel like in a burn deck, for some reason I just migrate more towards rampaging Balaloths. So that is everything for our non-lands. So moving on to our lands. First off, we've got 7 forests, and we got 6 mountains for a total of 13. I think I can bump this number up a little more, maybe like one more just to have a nice 15. But we would have to cut into some of our non-basic lands. So what's really cool about Tanuk is he turns all of these fetch lands into card draw. You can play even more fetch lands if you want. Like you can see I'm playing the Verdant Catacomb because it can get me to a green. And it doesn't have a color identity, so it's a colorless land, like most lands are. It's not affected by like commander rules, because since it doesn't have like mana symbol anywhere on it. So you can use it to get to your forest. It's a fetch land. But yeah, you play your fetch land, Tanuk deals 1, you sack your fetch land, get a land, Tanuk deals another 1, draws you a card. So it's a really cool +1. For our color fixing, we fix Exotic Orchard, Yavimaya, Command Tower, Stomping Ground, Commercial District, the Pathway land. And then we have a lot of different tech lands. This includes land destruction. So you can combo with your Crucible of Worlds plus Azusa. So that way you can play Strip Mine 3 times, for example. Wasteland, we're playing the Dust Bowl plus Drownyard Temple combo. If you really want to make this a very obnoxious combo, add a Seedborn Muse to the deck. So that way you can do this play every single turn. And how the play works is you start with these on board, you activate Dust Bowl, you sack Drownyard Temple, and then you can use the 3 mana, you can use Drownyard Temple's 3 mana ability to put it back into play. So that way you always have a land stacked to Dust Bowl. If you include a Seedborn Muse in your deck, you get to do this every single turn, and then bring back the Drownyard Temple. We'll ping everyone for 1 damage off Tanuk, as if they're not already annoyed when you start doing this. Thespian Dark Depths, Echoing Deeps, just so you have any land in your grave. Field of the Dead, Seiju, Glacial Chasm, Command Beacon, and a little bit of my own spice card, Petrified Field. This is a cool one where it taps for your colorless, or you can sack it to get a land from your grave back into your hand. So it's kind of like a second copy of Echoing Deeps. So I think this one's really neat. But yeah, that about wraps it up. This commander is really cool. It's a nice like landfall Gruul deck. Like you don't have to play like an AC, you don't have to play like one of the 2 Wind Graces. And it's like, it wins on like a unique axis too, where a lot of land decks are like, I'm gonna make a massive board, pump everything up and kill you. Tanuk feels very discreet, where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna play like my fetch land, I'm gonna draw a card, I'm gonna burn you guys for 2. And while like everyone else is like popping off with like their combos or something like that, you're just playing this very discreet, here's my lands, I have like 20 million mana, I was gonna burn, and it's just really cool like that. Like one of my favorite cards in the deck, Glacial Chasm, because like you don't even need to attack in this deck, so you don't need to worry about like finding like sneaky ways to keep like sacking Glacial Chasm, bring it back. Like I played a game where I just left it on the table for several turns where I was like, okay, I'll gladly lose 2 life, sure I'll lose 4 life, sure I'll lose 6 life, because I'm just not attacking, I'm just playing lands and burning out the table. So I was never in a situation where like I'll find like some sneaky way to like, okay, on my upkeep I'll lose the land, but I'll bring it back later. I was never in that situation where I felt I needed to do that, because I'm just not attacking. So I never felt limited by Glacial Chasm. Tanuk is just really cool. It's a really fun value engine, and you just get to play all the lands. And I feel like this is a really flexible commander, because when I was first building it, I was thinking about just building Tanuk with almost 90 something lands, just because Tanuk is really good with just if you hold lands and you play more lands, you draw more cards. But eventually I was like, no, I do need to play removal. I do need to play more card draw. I do need to play more ramp. But it's just a really neat, like, this commander lets you go in a lot of different angles. Like, you can play an infinite combo, or if you play 2 bounce lands and Kadama of the East Tree, they'll just bounce back and forth, and you can go infinite with Tanuk. You have a lot of different options like that. You have, like, that Seedborn combo I mentioned. You can do a lot of different things with Tanuk. And again, he helped get me that 4-0 at my pre-release, and encourage, like, pulling him, I was like, okay, I can make green work with this. So he, like, encouraged me to get into like more options for my pre-release deck than what I was originally going with. And I think he deserved that spot as both a commander and his own little video. So let's thank Tanuk for everything. Big fan. And if you like this type of content, again, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what way you're taking Tanuk, and I'll see you all in the next one.